Now, last night, following George Floyd's funeral, people once again took to the knees around the country. And as well as George, they also paid respect to Stuart Lawrence, who was murdered in a racist attack in 1993. Well, Stephen's younger brother, Stuart Lawrence, joins me now. Stuart, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it. And I just wonder how, particularly for you and your family, all of the events that are going on must be really hard for you.
Yeah, no, definitely. It has brought back that awful night that we lost Stephen. And first of all, I'd like to give my condolences out to George Floyd's family, because why are we here again losing another life in this manner? It's just absolutely devastating. It really is.
Well, you've been a teacher. I know you're a motivational speaker, and you talk to a lot of people and a lot of school kids and a lot of people in the community. Do you feel now a sense of that things will change? I mean, I know we felt that at the time of what happened to your brother, but do you feel all these years later that actually something will happen now?
Well, this is a brilliant time for something to happen. You know, the whole world has paused. The whole world is ready for a new type of normal. And while we have this moment, I do believe that it is important that we seize this time to implement real change. And not the lip service change, you know, where we just talk about it, but real change where governments, leaders of this world really sit up this time and say, OK, cool, we can do this, we can do this. And that's my first cry, really. You know, I'm asking Boris, what are you going to do? What's your legacy going to be, Boris? You know, this is your time to really stand up and show what a great leader you could be, and, you know, what a great story that would be to tell, for your son to tell his friends when they go to school that my dad was the one who really stood up to two things that was going on at the moment. One, you know, we've got this awful thing going on with coronavirus, but we've also got this awful thing called racism as well that's going around the world. And yeah, he made some mistakes around the coronavirus stuff, but you know what, he got the stuff around racism right. And he was the one that stood up to the rest of the countries in the world and said, look, here's how we can do it. Here's how we can change the world for good.
And do you think that he will listen? Because you're right, that would be an extraordinary legacy, wouldn't it? Are you hopeful that he will listen to your voice and to the voices of others?
I'm hopeful, of course I am. And, you know, that's all we can have is hope. And sometimes with these things as well, if you don't have the answer, don't feel like you can't ask people. And that's also what I want to say. If it's a case of you don't know what to do or how to do it next, then please reach out. There's loads of people in this great country who will be able to offer their advice and be able to show you what we need to do to implement this real change to affect a whole generation, a whole world. You know, we have that potential. We really do.
Because that's the thing as well. We've been talking about this a lot, obviously, on this show. Of course we have. And it's that thing of a lot of people are a wee bit nervous about talking about it in case they say the wrong thing. And everyone, and I'm sure you're the same, has just said, no, let's just talk. And if you do say the wrong thing, well, we'll tell you. And then you've learned something.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And that's what it is. It's open, honest dialogue that we need to have. It really is. You know, and this is my fight to have. I'm really hopeful that my son will never have to come on a TV show like yours to talk about the legacy of his uncle and, you know, how things haven't changed. It's my fight right here, right now, to stand up and say, it's now. Now is the time for change. You know, I'm willing to roll up my sleeves. I'm willing to help out where I can and to implement this once and for all.
You're really right about your son. I mean, that must have been an incredibly difficult, unimaginably difficult conversation to have had with him when you had to tell him about his uncle and tell him about the circumstances of that. That must have been so hard.
So I haven't really told him the gruesome details around his uncle, but, you know, he saw elements of what happened to George Floyd and he was confused. Yeah. You know, and I had to sit there and explain to him that, yes, do you know what? There is some bad people in the world, and yes, some people have some really warped feelings and ideals towards things. But I need him to understand that he's exactly the same as everyone else. You know, there is no one in this world that deserves to treat him or look at him different in any way at all, because he's not different.
Exactly. Now, it was interesting, wasn't it, about your brother? Your brother Stephen's name was heard at the protest. People remembered him. John Boyega, the actor, of course, who we know from many things, including Star Wars, he spoke about Stephen. He spoke very passionately about him. How does that feel for you to hear that all these years later that his name is still resonating? It's still really, really important.
It is important, and it was absolutely really super emotional to hear him. And, you know, I did reach out to him on social media and to say to him, Joe, I appreciate it, and I stand with you, because he didn't need to do what he did, but that just shows you the levels of where this is coming from and going to, that it affects so many people. And you know, I spoke to my great aunt before about the Brixton riots, and, you know, I spoke to my mum about what the right events that happened after Stephen. And the Brixton riots was, you know, predominantly black people there. You know, Stephen's incidents and where protesting was around, there was mainly black people, but there was a few white people as well. But these protests are all the young people, all the people who are just saying now, do you know what? I'm fed up. Yeah. I'm fed up. Enough's enough now. This is absolutely ridiculous. You know, this is the 21st century. We know it's wrong to treat people just because of the colour of their skin differently. We know that.
Well, exactly. So, it's like what Oprah Winfrey said. She said she's just exhausted. It's just exhausting. And it must be the same for you. You're just, it was exactly what you said, just fed up with it.
Yeah, just talk. Not fed up of it, but just fed up of talking about it.
Right, exactly.
Talk about it. Let us do something. Laws need to be changed. Policies need to be changed. And once we change these things at the top, it will have a cascade effect where it will just trickle down. And it will trickle down. It will keep on trickling down till it gets to the really grassroots of this country. That's what we need to do.
So we have to channel all of this that's happening right now. We've got to channel the anger, justifiable anger, the desire for change, the hunger for change. It has to be long-lasting. It has to be something concrete. And as you said, this is the time for Boris Johnson to step up, and what a legacy that would be.
That, as I said, you know, I looked at, before I came on, just what he said about it. And it's the language. He used the word spectacle. Now, if you look up the word spectacle, it was about an event, a show. It wasn't a show or an event that happened to George Floyd. It was an absolute public, modern-day lynching of a man. That's what it was. And that's what I'm saying. If we don't use the right language, if we don't say the right things, then what we are doing, we're not giving this event the grandeur that it deserves. You know, it's, as I said, this is the point now. I'm fed up with talking about it. Let's sit down, let's change the laws, let's change the policies, let's change these institutions once and for all, so that, you know what, my son, his son, does not need to come back to this topic again. We can just talk about how we overcame 2 major events during this time in this world. That's what we need to do, and it starts here today.
Stuart, thank you. Thank you so much for coming in. I really, really appreciate it. And I would love to have further talks with you in the future. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.